Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. In a remote mist-shrouded corner of the northern woodlands, where ancient pines whispered secrets to the wind and twilight lingered like a faded memory, there existed a legend that defied the very laws of nature. For generations, the people of the nearby hamlet of Silverwood spoke in hushed, awed tones of a mysterious cabin, a modest, weathered structure that defied permanence. It was said that every night, as the moon rose in silent majesty and darkness crept over the land, the cabin would vanish from its familiar spot only to reappear elsewhere by dawn. No one could predict its next location, and no map could capture its elusive presence. The cabin was known simply as the Wandering Hearth, a name that evoked both comfort and mystery, a beacon of warmth and a harbinger of the inexplicable. In the small village of Silverwood, nestled at the edge of an expansive forest, life was steeped in routine and the quiet murmur of ancient traditions. The villagers, though humble and hardworking, harbored a deep reverence for the legends passed down through the ages. In the flickering glow of hearth fires during long winter evenings, elders would recount the tale of the cabin that shifted with the night. A cabin whose walls seemed imbued with magic, whose windows glowed with an inner light, and whose door, when opened, offered a glimpse into worlds both wondrous and unsettling. Among the listeners was a young woman named Alice Gray, a quiet soul with inquisitive eyes and a heart that beat with a longing for the extraordinary. Alice had grown up hearing these stories and felt inexplicably drawn to the mystery of the wandering cabin. It had become a part of her dreams, a recurring vision of a warm, wooden refuge that appeared when the world grew cold and uncertain. Even as she left Silverwood to pursue life in the city, the legend tugged at her heart, whispering promises of adventure and hidden truths. Years later, when the weight of urban life and the relentless pace of modernity began to erode her spirit, Alice returned to Silverwood. The village, with its slow, measured rhythms and timeless traditions, welcomed her with open arms. It was as if every stone, every tree, carried the memory of her childhood. Yet amid the familiar faces and well-worn paths, one mystery remained unsolved: the elusive cabin that changed its location with each passing night. One crisp autumn evening, as the scarlet sun dipped below the horizon and the air turned cool with approaching winter, Alice sat on the porch of her family's old cottage, listening to the whispered reminiscences of her neighbors. Old Mr. Hawthorne, a retired woodsman with weathered skin and eyes that held the sparkle of forgotten lore, recounted with quiet pride how he had once caught a glimpse of the cabin near the frozen lake, its windows aglow as if lit from within by an eternal flame. His voice trembled with a mixture of fear and fascination. "I tell you," he said softly, "that cabin, it's not just wood and stone. It's as if it breathes with the soul of the forest, shifting like a dream, leading us to wonder where it may be next." Alice's heart pounded with anticipation. That very night, she resolved to seek the cabin and discover its secret. With her leather journal, a sturdy lantern, and the determination of someone who has longed for magic, she stepped into the darkening forest, guided by the stories of old. The forest of Silverwood was a realm of shifting light and ancient whispers. Moonlight filtered through towering trees whose branches intertwined like the fingers of forgotten gods. Every step Alice took was accompanied by the soft crunch of autumn leaves and the distant murmur of a brook. The deeper she ventured, the more the forest seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a subtle, inexplicable energy that both thrilled and unnerved her. For hours, she wandered along winding trails, her senses alert to every rustle and flicker of movement. At times, she thought she saw a warm, golden glow dancing between the trees, only to have it vanish when she drew near. The air was cool and crisp, imbued with the scent of pine resin and damp earth, and every now and then she caught a glimpse of a peculiar structure in the distance, a flash of wood, a flicker of light, just out of reach. Alice's journey felt both timeless and urgent, as though the forest itself were urging her onward, guiding her to a secret destination that defied the logic of the ordinary world. With each step, her heart beat faster, and her mind filled with both wonder and trepidation at the possibility that the legendary cabin might reveal itself. As midnight approached, the forest took on an ethereal quality. Shadows merged with silver beams of moonlight, and the air vibrated with quiet expectancy. Just when Alice began to think that her search might be in vain, a soft, warm glow emerged ahead, like the gentle light of a hearth seen through the window of a long-forgotten house. She hurried forward, her breath catching in her throat. There, in a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees, stood the cabin. It was modest, a simple wooden structure with a stone chimney and a single, inviting window. But it exuded an aura of timelessness and quiet mystery. The cabin's exterior was weathered by time, its paint faded to a gentle pastel, yet it radiated an almost magnetic warmth. It was as if the cabin had been waiting for her arrival. Alice approached slowly, her heart alight with excitement and caution. She reached out and gently knocked on the door, half expecting no answer. To her surprise, the door creaked open on its own, inviting her into the dim interior. As she stepped inside, she was greeted by the comforting scent of burning wood and the faint lingering notes of an old lullaby. Inside, the cabin was a study in contrasts, a place where the simplicity of rustic life merged with hints of something otherworldly. The walls were adorned with faded photographs, handwritten letters, and intricate carvings that hinted at the cabin's long history. An old fireplace, its hearth cold, but its mantle dusted with memories, dominated one wall. In the center of the room, a round table bore an arrangement of candles and a weathered map, its markings cryptic and suggestive of shifting boundaries. Alice spent hours exploring every corner, her mind racing with questions. How had this cabin come to be? What secret allowed it to appear in one place one night and vanish the next? The answers, she sensed, lay hidden within the cabin's relics, a diary here, an old drawing there, each piece a fragment of a larger, mysterious tapestry. In a small cupboard tucked away behind a row of ancient books, Alice discovered a leather-bound journal with brittle pages. The entries were written in elegant, flowing script and recounted the life of a previous occupant, a wanderer and storyteller named Jonathan Wren, who had long since disappeared from the world. His words spoke of a cabin that moved with the whims of fate, of a magic born of grief and hope, and of a promise that the cabin would always reveal itself to those who were open to its call. His final entry, dated on a cold winter's night, read, "The cabin is not merely a shelter from the storm, it is a beacon of transformation. Tonight, as the stars align, I step into the unknown, carried by the magic of the wandering hearth. May those who follow find their true path." In the days that followed, Alice returned to the cabin repeatedly, each visit deepening her understanding of its strange nature. Every night, the cabin would vanish before dawn, leaving no trace of its existence save for the memories of those who had seen it. In the morning, the clearing would be empty, a quiet patch of forest floor with nothing to mark the passage of that mysterious refuge. Alice began to document her experiences meticulously. She recorded the dates, the weather, the position of the cabin relative to landmarks, and even the subtle changes in its appearance. She discovered that sometimes the cabin appeared near the edge of a bubbling brook, and on other nights it emerged in a clearing encircled by ancient, gnarled trees. Each location seemed to be chosen with a poetic precision, A reminder that the magic of the cabin was not random, but deeply tied to the spirit of the land. The local villagers, too, had their own accounts. At the town's modest inn, over mugs of steaming cider, they would exchange stories of glimpses of a warm light in the forest, of a distant melody that lured them toward the unknown. Some swore that the cabin brought good fortune, while others whispered of curses and sorrow. The more Alice listened, the more she realized that the cabin was both a promise and a warning, a portal to transformation that demanded respect and caution. As the months turned with the cycle of the seasons, the phenomenon of the wandering cabin took on new dimensions. In the vibrant hues of autumn, the cabin seemed to burn with the fire of harvest, its red and orange tones blending harmoniously with the falling leaves. In the stark, silent winter, it appeared as a beacon of warmth against the biting cold, its windows glowing like embers in the snow. Spring brought with it a burst of renewal, and the cabin emerged amid blooming wildflowers and the gentle hum of new life. Even in the fullness of summer, when the days were long and the heat oppressive, the cabin would appear briefly as a shimmering mirage beneath a canopy of verdant trees. During one particularly memorable summer night, Alice encountered a mysterious stranger in the forest, a man with eyes that reflected the starlight, who introduced himself simply as Rowan. He, too, had been drawn to the legend of the wandering hearth, and together they shared tales of their experiences, their hopes, and the secrets of the forest. Rowan was a poet at heart, and his words painted the cabin as not merely a structure, but as a living symbol of the eternal cycle of endings and beginnings. Their bond deepened over the course of many such nights as they explored the forest, following the shifting trails that led to the cabin's ephemeral presence. One night, as autumn deepened into a crisp, star-strewn sky, Alice and Rowan stood together in a clearing where the cabin had just vanished. They spoke in low, earnest tones about the nature of the magic they had witnessed and the personal transformations it had wrought in them. For Alice, the cabin had become a mirror reflecting her innermost desires and fears, a beacon urging her to embrace change. For Rowan, it was a muse, a source of endless inspiration and a symbol of the transient beauty of life. As they walked back through the silent forest, the air heavy with the scent of pine and the promise of midnight, they confronted a profound choice. The cabin, with its ever-shifting nature, offered a path to transcendence, a possibility of leaving behind the burdens of the past. Yet it also demanded that one relinquish the familiar comforts of life, that one step boldly into the realm of constant change. In that quiet moment, amid the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft glow of moonlight, they realized that their journeys were intertwined. Whether they chose to follow the cabin's call into the unknown or return to the lives they had once known, their hearts would forever carry the memory of that elusive, magical refuge. As the winter solstice approached, the air turned icy and the nights grew long. On the eve of the solstice, when the forest was cloaked in a silvery frost and the sky glittered with stars, the cabin appeared one last time, more brilliant and defiant than ever before. Alice and Rowan, united by their shared resolve, made their way to the clearing with quiet determination. In that final appearance, the cabin stood resolute amid the frozen landscape. Its warm light shone like a beacon, inviting them to step inside and embrace the unknown. With a deep breath, they pushed open the creaking door and entered. Inside, the cabin revealed its true nature, a place where time was fluid, where memories and dreams danced in the interplay of light and shadow. In a quiet, solemn ceremony, the cabin seemed to offer them a choice: to remain in that timeless refuge, enjoying the realm of endless possibility, or to return to the world they had known, carrying with them the legacy of its magic. After a long, contemplative silence, Alice and Rowan exchanged a look of mutual understanding. They chose not to abandon the life they had known, but to integrate the lessons of the wandering cabin into their very souls. With heavy hearts and hopeful spirits, they stepped back out into the cold, starlit night as the cabin's light slowly faded, vanishing once more, as if it had never been. Its final disappearance was not a loss, but a promise that its magic would endure in every memory, every whispered story, and every courageous heart that dared to seek it. In the years that followed, the legend of the cabin that changed its location every night became a cherished part of Silverwood's folklore. Alice and Rowan, now deeply bonded by their shared journey, chronicled their experiences in a beautifully bound journal filled with sketches, poems, and reflections. Their writings spoke of transformation, the bittersweet nature of impermanence, and the eternal dance between the known and the mysterious. They became local storytellers, inviting others to share in the magic of the forest. Every year, on the anniversary of the night of the final disappearance, villagers gathered at the edge of the woods to light lanterns and listen to the tales of the wandering cabin, a symbol of hope, change, and the beauty of the unknown. Artists, musicians, and dreamers found inspiration in its elusive presence, and the memory of the cabin nurtured a deep, abiding belief that life was full of unexpected wonders waiting just beyond the horizon. Decades later, long after the wandering cabin had become a legend of the past, its legacy continued to echo through the heart of the forest. On quiet nights when the moon was full and the air was filled with the soft murmur of distant memories, travelers would occasionally glimpse a warm light dancing between the trees, a reminder that the cabin still roamed the land, always shifting, always offering a sanctuary to those with the courage to follow its call. Alice and Rowan's journal, passed down through generations, became a treasured heirloom in Silverwood, a beacon of the transformative power of mystery and the enduring magic of change. And in every whispered tale, every brush of wind along the forest floor, there remained the promise of the cabin, a promise that while the physical structure might vanish with the dawn, its spirit, its lessons, and its eternal hearth would live on in the hearts of all who dared to dream. Thus ends the chronicle of the cabin that changes its location every night, a tale of fleeting refuges, transformative journeys, and the magic that resides in the constant flux of life. For as long as the forest stands and the stars light the night, the legend of the wandering hearth will endure, a timeless invitation to embrace the mystery of the unknown and to find solace in the ever-shifting dance between memory and possibility. In a remote valley untouched by time, there flowed a river unlike any other, a river that shimmered with an eerie brilliance under the noonday sun. Locals in the nearby village of Windmere spoke in hushed tones of its strange waters. They said that on clear days when the world around it pulsed with the familiar rhythms of life, the river revealed a secret. Its surface was not a mirror of our own world, but a gateway, a portal reflecting another dimension. This other realm, according to whispered legend, was a place of wonder and peril, where reality and dreams intermingled in an endless dance. Few dared approach the river's edge for too long, for its reflective surface stirred both awe and dread, hinting at a mystery far beyond mortal understanding. Aidan Mercer had grown up on the outskirts of Windmere, where the scent of pine and the murmur of the river were as familiar as the beating of his own heart. As a boy, he would sit by its banks, mesmerized by the way the water seemed to ripple with secret voices, voices that spoke of ancient memories and distant, unseen lands. Now a young man with a restless spirit and a thirst for discovery, Aidan had returned to Windmere after years in the city. Haunted by recurring dreams of luminous waters and shimmering landscapes beyond the ordinary, he felt an irresistible pull to seek out the truth behind the river's fabled reflection. One crisp morning, as a pale sun rose over misty hills, Aidan set out with nothing but a leather-bound journal, a sketchbook, and an unyielding curiosity. The path led him along winding trails and through sun-dappled groves until he reached the river's edge. There, before his very eyes, the water glowed with a soft, iridescent light. It was then that he noticed something impossible. Beneath the gentle ripples, a mirror-like surface revealed not his own reflection, but a vast, otherworldly panorama. A landscape of surreal beauty and haunting mystery that beckoned him to step beyond the boundaries of the known. Aiden crouched by the riverbank, his heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and wonder. In the center of the river, the water held a startling clarity. Instead of the usual muddled reflections of trees and sky, the surface rippled with visions of an alternate world. Rolling hills of deep indigo and emerald stretched toward a horizon where gigantic, luminescent structures loomed. Buildings that defied the laws of gravity, suspended in a perpetual twilight. Floating islands draped in strange, radiant flora drifted lazily above crystalline lakes, and the sky above shimmered with swirling constellations that seemed to rewrite themselves with every passing moment. Aiden spent hours sketching the impossible vista, each stroke of his pencil capturing a fleeting glimpse of that hidden world. He noted how the colors shifted in a mesmerizing dance, from cool blues and greens to warm violets and golds, and how the very air around the river seemed charged with energy. It was as if the river itself was alive, a living tapestry woven from the fabric of two realities. And in that moment, Aiden understood that the legend was true. The river was a mirror, a bridge between his world and another dimension. Driven by a newfound resolve, Aiden decided he must cross the threshold. He constructed a small raft from fallen branches and weathered planks he found along the riverbank, determined to journey downstream to where the boundary between worlds might be thinnest. As he pushed off into the gentle current, the river's surface glittered under the sun, reflecting both the familiar world behind him and the mysterious dimension ahead. The journey was surreal. As the raft floated along, Aiden observed the river's dual nature. On one side, the gentle murmurs of Windmere, with its vibrant meadows and rustic cottages. On the other, the shimmering expanse of the alternate realm, where gravity seemed to loosen its grip and the laws of nature bent into dreamlike patterns. Time itself appeared to slow, each ripple a testament to the slow, rhythmic heartbeat of two intertwined worlds. In quiet moments, he heard echoes of voices, a distant laughter, a soft lament, merging with the song of the river, urging him forward. After what felt like both an eternity and a single, suspended moment, Aiden's raft reached a narrow bend where the river's flow intensified. The water roared as it rushed through a gorge framed by ancient stone arches, and here, the barrier between the worlds grew faint. On the far bank, a mysterious light beckoned, a soft luminescence that seemed to pulse in tune with the river's flow. Aiden steered his raft toward that luminous shore, his heart alight with both hope and fear. Stepping onto the bank, he found himself in a liminal space, a narrow strip of land where the fabric of reality seemed thinnest. The air shimmered with a spectral glow, and every breath he took felt as though it carried the essence of both his world and the mysterious realm beyond. Before him lay a natural archway formed by entwined trees and cascading vines, behind which the river's surface rippled with an intensity that suggested passage. With a deep, steadying breath, Aiden stepped through the arch, leaving behind the only world he had ever known. Aiden emerged into a landscape of breathtaking wonder. The air was crisp, filled with scents of unfamiliar blossoms and the tang of otherworldly minerals. Here the sky was a swirling canvas of colors that defied description, a constantly shifting panorama that oscillated between the soft pastels of dawn and the rich, deep hues of twilight. The ground beneath his feet was covered in bioluminescent moss, and nearby, crystalline streams snaked through fields of luminescent wildflowers. In this new world, time had a different cadence. There were no clocks, no hurry, only the gentle progression of light and shadow. As he wandered along a winding path, Aiden encountered beings who were neither wholly human nor entirely ethereal. These inhabitants of the other realm moved with an effortless grace, their forms translucent and shimmering with inner light. They greeted him with knowing smiles and silent nods, as if they had been expecting him all along. One such figure, a tall, graceful woman with eyes like polished opal, introduced herself as Seraphine, a guide and guardian of this dimension. "Welcome," she said softly, her voice a melodic whisper carried on the wind. "You have crossed the river of reflection and entered a realm where dreams take form and the impossible becomes possible. Here, we are all both creators and creations, bound by the same eternal dance of life and mystery." Over the next several days, Aiden journeyed deeper into the hidden dimension, accompanied by Seraphine and a small group of its inhabitants who called themselves the Council of Echoes. They gathered in a grand amphitheater carved from luminescent stone, a place where the voices of the past and the hopes of the future converged in a chorus of silent symphony. Here, Aiden learned that the other world was not separate from his own, but an alternate reflection, a realm where the dreams, emotions, and untold histories of humanity took on physical form. The Council of Echoes revealed that the river was created long ago by a convergence of cosmic energies and mortal aspirations. It served as a bridge, allowing those with pure hearts and unquenchable curiosity to glimpse the infinite possibilities of existence. However, the council warned that the realm was fragile. Just as the river could reveal beauty and wonder, it could also mirror the darkest corners of the human soul. They spoke of souls lost to despair and the burden of memories too heavy to bear, reminding Aiden that every journey into this realm was as much an inward quest as it was an exploration of the unknown. As Aiden's sojourn continued, he faced challenges that tested his very being. In one trial, he found himself in a forest of living mirrors. Each reflective surface showed not his physical form, but fragments of his inner self, his hopes, his regrets, and his hidden fears. Walking through the forest was like traversing a labyrinth of his own emotions, forcing him to confront the parts of himself he had long kept hidden. In another trial, Aiden encountered a vast desert of memories, where each grain of sand whispered stories of loss and redemption. Here he was compelled to relive moments of joy and sorrow from his past, a painful yet ultimately cathartic experience that left him both shattered and reborn. The trials, though harrowing, imbued him with a deeper understanding of the delicate balance between light and shadow, hope and despair. Through it all, Seraphine remained a steadfast guide, her gentle wisdom and luminous presence a beacon in the ever-shifting landscape. "Remember," she would say, "that every challenge you face here is a reflection of your inner journey. Embrace the lessons of your past and let them guide you to a future unburdened by regret." One fateful night, under a sky awash with the brilliance of 1,000 stars, Aiden and Seraphine ascended a hill that overlooked the entire realm. From this vantage point, the truth of the two worlds was laid bare before him. In the distance, he saw the river glimmering like a silver serpent, its waters undulating between the familiar world of Windmere and the mysterious dimension he now inhabited. The two realms were intertwined, like the twin faces of a coin, one the tangible, fleeting reality of life, the other an endless tapestry of dreams and untold possibilities. In that transcendent moment, Aiden understood that the river was not merely a boundary, but a conduit for the very essence of existence. It reflected the collective hopes and fears of all who lived in both realms, a living testament to the eternal dance of creation and dissolution. The revelation filled him with a profound sense of connection, a realization that every moment, every emotion, was a thread woven into the grand tapestry of the universe. Armed with this newfound understanding, Aiden faced a pivotal choice. He could return to the world he had known, a life marked by routine, certainty, and the comforting embrace of the familiar, or he could remain in the alternate dimension, where every moment pulsed with possibility, beauty, and inherent risk. The allure of eternal wonder was powerful, yet the ties to his past, to the people he loved, tugged at his heart. In long, sleepless nights, Aiden wrestled with his decision. The Council of Echoes and Seraphine counseled him that the choice was his alone to make, that both realms held their own truths and treasures. "You are a bridge, Aiden," Seraphine murmured one evening as they watched the silver river flow under a canopy of twilight. "You carry the light of both worlds within you. Whether you choose to remain or return, know that your journey has forever altered you. Embrace the duality of your soul, for it is in this unity that true wisdom is found." After much reflection, with a heart both heavy and hopeful, Aiden chose to return to his own world. He knew that he would forever be changed, that the mysteries of the hidden realm would remain etched in his memory, guiding him as he navigated the complexities of life. With a final lingering look at the radiant expanse before him, he stepped into the river's embrace and let its current carry him back. Emerging on the banks of the familiar River Taryn, Aiden found the world seemingly untouched by time, yet he perceived it with new eyes. The mundane and the magical had merged within him, and he began to see echoes of the hidden realm in everyday life. A glimmer in the eye of a stranger, the subtle shimmer of light on water, the fleeting glimpse of color in an otherwise ordinary day. The river, it seemed, still whispered its secrets, reminding him of the infinite possibilities that lay just beyond the veil. Aiden dedicated the following years of his life to sharing his experiences. He penned a series of books detailing his journey, blending lyrical prose with vivid illustrations of the other dimension. His writings touched the hearts of many, inspiring artists, philosophers, and dreamers to explore the hidden depths of their own souls. A small community of like-minded seekers began to form, gathering by the river at twilight to discuss the mysteries of the universe and the delicate balance between reality and dreams. In the quiet twilight of his later years, Aiden often returned to the river's edge, a gentle smile playing on his lips as he watched the water ripple in the golden light of dusk. Though he had chosen to live in the world of men, the memory of the hidden realm remained ever vibrant within him. The river's reflective surface continued to reveal glimpses of another dimension, a reminder that every moment of life, no matter how ordinary, carried within it the seeds of wonder and the potential for transcendence. The legend of the river that reflects another dimension endured long after Aiden's footsteps faded from its banks. It became a cherished myth, a symbol of the endless dance between the known and the unknown, between the tangible present and the infinite realm of dreams. And for those who dared to listen, the river whispered a timeless truth, that the fabric of reality is woven with threads of mystery, and that by embracing the hidden wonders within and around us, we can unlock the eternal magic of the universe. Thus, the story of the river beyond the veil lives on, a testament to the power of dreams, the beauty of duality, and the unyielding spirit of those who seek to glimpse the infinite. For as long as the river flows and the stars light the night, the secret of the other dimension remains a promise of endless possibility, waiting to be discovered by every curious soul who gazes into its reflective depths. In a land where ancient oaks whisper secrets and twilight lingers like a lover's sigh, there is a legend told by those who dare to listen. In a remote village, far from the bustle of modernity, an old tale persists, a tale of a violin that does not merely sing, but echoes the agonized cries from the grave. It is said that the instrument, crafted centuries ago by a master luthier whose heart was shattered by unimaginable loss, holds within its strings the sorrow of countless souls. When played, Its mournful strains evoke the voices of the departed, a lament that weaves together grief, memory, and the relentless passage of time. The violin has come to be known as the violin of the mourning grave, a cursed relic that carries both beauty and despair in every note. Elias Beaumont, an unassuming music conservatory student with an old soul and a passion for forgotten melodies, had always been drawn to relics of the past. While rummaging through the attic of his ancestral home, a creaking manor nestled on the edge of a mist-shrouded cemetery, Elias stumbled upon a weathered wooden case hidden beneath a tangle of dusty canvases and faded photographs. Intrigued, he pried open the case and discovered a violin unlike any he had ever seen. Its body was adorned with delicate carvings of anguished faces and entwined vines, its wood a deep, dark mahogany that seemed to pulse with latent emotion. Attached was a faded parchment inscribed with cryptic verses. When sorrow's breath entwines with night, and silence weeps in pale moonlight, the strings shall cry a dirge so grave, the song of souls beyond the grave. From that moment, Elias sensed that this was no ordinary instrument. Its mere presence stirred something deep within him, a mixture of wonder, dread, and an irresistible yearning to learn its secrets. Unable to contain his curiosity, Elias took the violin to his small practice room. As twilight gathered outside, he carefully tuned the instrument, feeling the cool touch of its worn wood and the subtle vibrations that hinted at hidden power. With trembling fingers, he drew the bow across the strings. A single note emerged, a sound of such profound melancholy that it seemed to echo with voices not of this world. The tone was both haunting and beautiful, resonating with a sorrow that touched the very core of his being. In that first melody, Elias felt an inexplicable presence, as if unseen eyes watched over him. Outside, the wind whispered through the bare branches of the cemetery, and for a brief, indescribable moment, the sound of the violin merged with distant, ghostly wails. Startled yet entranced, Elias realized that the violin's song was more than music. It was a conduit to the realm of the lost. News of the mysterious violin soon spread throughout the village. Locals recalled the old legend of the instrument that could summon the cries of the dead, a cursed relic said to have been forged in the fires of sorrow and despair. An elderly storyteller named Mrs. Adelaide, with eyes milky from time and tears, recounted how the violin had once belonged to a virtuoso named Lucien Marceau. According to whispered lore, Lucien had been a celebrated musician whose life was marked by tragic loss. After the untimely death of his beloved daughter, he had retreated from the world and crafted a violin in a desperate bid to capture and preserve her fleeting essence. But the magic he invoked came at a terrible cost. Each note played on the violin would summon the mournful cries of the departed, binding their sorrow to the instrument forever. Intrigued and terrified, Elias delved into the archives at the village's crumbling library. Amid brittle manuscripts and yellowed pages, he uncovered fragmented accounts of Lucien's life and the fateful day when he disappeared, leaving behind nothing but the cursed violin. The documents spoke of nightly laments, of townsfolk hearing forlorn wails in the dead of night, and of the instrument's uncanny ability to mirror the anguish of the grave. With each new piece of the puzzle, Elias became increasingly convinced that his discovery was entwined with a legacy of grief and magic beyond mortal comprehension. One cold, moonless night, compelled by an insatiable need for understanding, Elias returned to the cemetery near his ancestral home. Clutching the violin, he wandered among the ancient tombstones until he reached a secluded clearing. Here, the wind seemed to hold its breath, and an eerie silence enveloped the ground. Beneath a large, crumbling mausoleum, he felt an inexplicable pull. Settling onto a moss-covered stone, he began to play once more. This time, as his bow caressed the strings, the sound that emerged was different, a layered, sorrowful symphony that seemed to weave together the voices of countless lost souls. Amid the strains of the melody, faint cries began to echo around him. The sound was distant yet distinct, as if coming from deep within the earth. Elias closed his eyes, allowing the music to carry him away. And in that moment, he saw visions, shadowy figures, faces contorted in anguish and longing, reaching out with desperate hands as if pleading for release. For several agonizing minutes, the violin's lament filled the clearing with an otherworldly resonance. The cries grew louder, mingling with the rustle of leaves and the soft murmur of the night wind. Elias realized with dawning horror and profound sorrow that the violin was summoning the very souls of the dead, echoes of grief that had been trapped in the void between life and death. The visions left Elias shaken and tormented. He began to dream of Lucien Marceau, the tormented musician whose spirit seemed forever bound to the violin. In his dreams, Lucien appeared as a gaunt figure in a tattered suit, his eyes brimming with silent tears. He wandered through shadowed corridors of an ethereal concert hall where the applause of the living had long since faded into ghostly echoes. Lucien's silent lament was palpable, a never-ending dirge for a daughter lost to the relentless cruelty of fate. In these dreams, Lucien would approach Elias, his voice a soft murmur. "Play so that I may sing again. Let our sorrow be known, that we may be free." The dreams blurred the line between past and present, leaving Elias to question whether he was being haunted by the musician's spirit or whether his own soul was becoming intertwined with the violin's dark magic. Each morning he awoke drenched in sweat and with a heavy heart, burdened by the weight of a legacy he had never chosen. Haunted by visions and tormented by the cries from the grave, Elias resolved to seek a way to break the curse. He believed that if he could understand the source of the violin's sorrowful power, he might find a path to redemption, not only for himself but for the tormented soul of Lucien and the many lost voices it had captured. His journey led him far beyond the familiar streets of Briarwick. He traveled to remote villages, consulted mystics, and combed through ancient texts in forgotten libraries. In the dusty corridors of an old monastery, a reclusive scholar named Father Matthias revealed a long-hidden secret. The curse of the violin could be lifted only by an act of pure, selfless love, a sacrifice that would allow the spirits bound to its strings to find rest. Father Matthias spoke of an ancient ritual performed on the anniversary of Lucien's disappearance, a night when the veil between worlds was thinnest. The ritual required the offering of something precious, a memory, a cherished melody, or the very essence of one's heart, to appease the sorrow that had once given birth to the curse. Torn between his desire to release the spirits and the terror of losing a part of himself, Elias pondered the cost of such a sacrifice. Determined and resolute, Elias prepared for the fateful night. On the anniversary of Lucien's disappearance, he returned once more to the secluded clearing in the cemetery. The night was heavy with anticipation. The full moon cast silver light upon ancient tombstones, and a cool wind whispered through the skeletal branches of leafless trees. In the center of the clearing, Elias set down the violin on a weathered stone altar. Beside it, he placed a memento, a faded photograph of his late mother, whose love had been his guiding light, and lit a solitary candle, its flame trembling like a heartbeat in the darkness. With trembling hands and a soul laid bare, Elias began to play a new melody, a composition born of sorrow and hope, of loss and the longing for release. As the notes floated into the night, the very air around him seemed to vibrate with energy. Slowly, as if responding to the music, a soft luminescence gathered at the edges of the clearing. The cries from the grave grew louder, mingling with the harmonious strains of Elias's song. In that enchanted moment, the veil between the living and the dead grew thin, and a spectral chorus arose, a cacophony of voices that echoed with centuries of heartache and yearning. Amid the chorus, the figure of Lucian materialized, a frail, sorrowful specter reaching out with translucent hands. "Let the music mend our broken hearts," he whispered, his voice a fragile echo of a time long past. The ritual reached its crescendo as Elias poured his heart into every note, offering his own love and loss as the key to unbinding the spirits. For what felt like an eternity suspended in a single, profound moment, the clearing became a nexus of sound and light. The violin's melody, imbued with the weight of 1,000 unspoken tears, seemed to stitch together the torn fabric of time. The voices of the dead swirled around Elias, and slowly, visibly, the tormented expressions on the specters' faces softened. The melancholic wails gradually turned to gentle sighs, as if each cry was released into the ether and set free. Then, in a climactic surge of emotion and magic, the spectral figures began to fade. Lucian's form, once so vivid and sorrowful, dissolved into a soft glow that merged with the moonlight. The oppressive weight of the curse lifted, replaced by a quiet, resonant peace. The violin's song tapered off into silence, and in that hush, the candle's flame steadied. Elias, exhausted yet strangely uplifted, felt an indescribable relief, as if a great burden had finally been eased. In the days that followed, the world around Elias began to shift imperceptibly. The cries from the grave were no longer a constant lament, but a soft memory, a whisper carried on the wind. The violin, still in his possession, had lost some of its haunting edge, though its beauty remained, a bittersweet reminder of the night when sorrow and hope danced together beneath the full moon. Elias spent countless hours in solitude, reflecting on the experience. He documented every detail in his journal, the spectral visions, the emotion of the ritual, and the profound transformation he had witnessed. His writings grew into a long, elegiac chronicle that captured not only the tragedy of the curse, but also the redemptive power of love and sacrifice. News of the ritual spread quietly among the people of Briarwick, and those who had once been haunted by the melancholy cries found solace in the knowledge that the curse had been, if not entirely broken, at least softened. In local lore, the violin came to be seen as a vessel of both sorrow and healing, a relic that, when played with pure intent, could bridge the divide between life and death, and remind all who listened that even the deepest pain could give way to renewal. Years passed, and Elias's tale of the violin of the morning grave became a legend in its own right. His journals, filled with poetic reflections and raw, unfiltered emotion, were eventually compiled into a book that touched the hearts of many. Musicians, poets, and dreamers from distant lands sought to experience the magic of the violin for themselves. Some claimed that on quiet nights they could hear its echoes, a soft, mournful tune drifting through the corridors of old mansions and along moonlit paths. Elias continued to play the violin, though he did so with a tempered reverence. He understood that its power was not a toy to be wielded at whim, but a living repository of human sorrow and hope. In his later years, he would often sit by the window of his modest home, gazing at the starlit sky and recalling the night when the cries of the dead were finally set free. The violin remained by his side, a constant, bittersweet reminder of the fragile line between memory and oblivion, between grief and redemption. Long after Elias had passed from the mortal world, his story lived on in the hearts of those who believed in the redemptive power of art and sacrifice. The violin of the morning grave, as it came to be known, was preserved in a small museum dedicated to the legends of Briarwick, a relic of sorrow and hope, its strings forever echoing the cries that once rose from the grave. On quiet, reflective nights, visitors would stand before the display, listening to the soft hum of the violin strings and imagining the spectral chorus of lost souls finally finding peace. The legend served as a testament to the enduring truth that every sorrow carries within it the seed of healing, and that even in the darkest moments, the human heart has the power to transform pain into beauty. Thus, the tale of the violin that echoes, cries from the grave endures, a timeless melody woven into the fabric of memory, a reminder that every note of sorrow can be a prelude to redemption, and that in the eternal dance between life and death, the music of the soul resounds forever. In a forgotten quarter of a city where cobblestone streets still echoed with the footfalls of a bygone era, there stood an old theater whose faded marquee read only "Eternity." Locals spoke of it in reverent, hushed tones, a place where the boundaries between life and art blurred, where the performances lingered long after the final bow. The legend went that once an actor stepped onto its creaking stage, they were fated never to be seen leaving. The theater, it was said, ensnared its performers in a spell of everlasting performance, a haunting refrain echoing the joys and sorrows of every role they had ever played. This was not merely a building of brick and mortar, but a living relic, a mausoleum of dreams and tragedies that refused to let go. Celia Hart had always been enchanted by the theater. As a young girl, she would sneak behind the velvet curtains at community plays and imagine herself on stage, living a life full of passion and creativity. Now in her late 20s and a fledgling playwright with dreams too big for the small venues of her everyday life, she received an unexpected letter printed on aged parchment. The letter was an invitation to attend a private performance at the once renowned but long abandoned theater known as Eternity. Its words were mysterious and evocative, promising a night of transformative art where the line between actor and audience dissolves into eternal applause. Intrigued and filled with a sense of destiny, Celia journeyed through winding streets and past ancient lampposts until she arrived at a wrought iron gate draped in ivy. Beyond it loomed the theater, a grand yet somber edifice whose ornate facade hinted at glorious days now shrouded in shadow. As she stepped into the dim lobby, Celia could feel the weight of countless untold stories pressing in from every corner. On the night of the performance, the theater was alive with an otherworldly energy. Candlelight flickered along corridors lined with tattered portraits of long-forgotten actors, their painted eyes seeming to follow every movement. Celia took her seat in an ancient velvet seat, heart pounding as she waited for the show to begin. The stage, draped in heavy red curtains, exuded an aura of expectancy, as if it held secrets too profound for mere mortals. The performance commenced in silence, a single spotlight revealing a lone figure entering the stage. The actor's voice, rich with emotion, filled the theater, and soon an entire cast appeared. The play unfolded like a dream, its narrative a tapestry woven from love, betrayal, and redemption. Yet as the final scene drew near and the actors delivered their closing lines, a strange phenomenon occurred. One by one, as if in unison with an unspoken cue, the actors did not exit the stage. Instead, they remained in place, frozen in their final poses, their eyes fixed on an unseen horizon. When the curtains finally fell and the audience began to stir, the stage was empty of life beyond the lingering echoes of applause. No actor was seen departing through the wings, and not a single soul emerged from backstage. In the ensuing hush, murmurs of awe and terror spread among the few who dared to speak. After the performance, Celia lingered in the foyer, her mind reeling with questions. She sought out the caretaker of the theater, an elderly man named Mr. Aldridge, whose eyes held a lifetime of sorrow and secrets. In a voice barely above a whisper, he recounted the ancient lore of eternity. Long ago, he murmured, this theater was the crown jewel of our city. Actors from far and wide graced its stage, and in their passion, bound themselves to it. They say that when an actor steps into eternity, they become part of the play forever. Their departure is thwarted by a curse cast in the throes of tragedy and lost hope. None who have performed here have ever been seen leaving. Haunted by his words and determined to understand the truth, Celia began to probe further. She combed through dusty records and forgotten diaries hidden in a locked room behind the stage. There, amidst brittle pages and faded photographs, she uncovered the story of the theater's most celebrated star, Eleanor Sterling, a luminous actress whose final performance had ended in sudden, inexplicable silence. It was said that on the night of her farewell, Eleanor vanished from sight, leaving behind only a lingering echo of her final lines. In the days that followed the performance, Celia found herself drawn back to the theater. Each visit revealed more of its eerie character. Mirrors that reflected only fragments of the present, corridors where footsteps echoed in empty spaces, and a pervasive chill that seemed to seep from the very walls. At night, she would hear the faint strains of dialogue and applause echoing as if the actors were rehearsing an eternal encore. Celia's investigations led her to speak with those who remembered the old days. Retired actors, faded stagehands, and even a mysterious woman known only as the Muse, whose presence in the theater was felt more than seen. They told tales of a time when every performance was a sacred communion between art and life, and of a curse so potent that it trapped the very souls of those who dared to take the stage. "They never truly leave," the Muse once whispered to Celia in a dreamlike state, "for their hearts remain forever entwined with the magic of eternity." Compelled by her growing obsession, Celia arranged a secret meeting with Mr. Aldridge in the theater's abandoned rehearsal room. In the dim light of a single swinging bulb, he recounted the tragic history that had set the curse in motion. It was said that during a particularly fierce winter, a fire had erupted in the theater during a much-anticipated performance. In the ensuing chaos, many actors were trapped on stage, unable to escape as the flames engulfed the backstage. In a final act of desperate magic, the director, rumored to be a practitioner of ancient arts, had invoked a ritual to save the performance, binding the actors to the theater so that they might continue to perform even in death. A hush fell over the room as Mr. Aldridge's voice faltered. "Ever since that night," he said, "the spirits of the actors have roamed these halls. Their passion for the stage became their prison. The curse was not meant to preserve life, but to trap it, to keep their art alive long after their mortal bodies were gone." Haunted by this revelation, Celia felt both dread and a strange magnetic allure toward the theater. One moonlit night, driven by a need to confront the unseen forces herself, she crept into the auditorium as a ghostly performance began to unfold before her eyes. The stage, bathed in soft, spectral light, came alive with the phantoms of actors rehearsing lines in a language of longing and loss. Their movements were graceful, yet sorrowful, as if each gesture was a farewell to a life that had slipped away. As Celia watched, mesmerized, one actor in particular caught her attention. A man with eyes full of quiet torment who delivered a soliloquy that seemed to capture the very essence of the curse. In that moment, the actor's gaze met hers, and for a heartbeat, it was as though he was pleading for release. The vision faded as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving Celia with a heart heavy with empathy and an unquenchable desire to help these lost souls. Determined to break the curse that held the actors captive, Celia embarked on a quest for a counter-ritual, a way to release their spirits and allow them to leave the theater at last. Her research took her into the hidden archives of the city's oldest library, where she uncovered ancient texts on theatrical magic and rites of passage for the departed. The manuscript spoke of a ritual that required the convergence of three elements: the tears of a true artist, the laughter of a child who believed in miracles, and the echo of a final, heartfelt performance. Celia sought out those rare, genuine expressions of life's beauty. She arranged a clandestine performance in the theater, a modern reinterpretation of the classic plays that once graced its stage. She enlisted the help of local actors and a troupe of enthusiastic children whose innocent delight was unmatched. Under her careful direction, the performance unfolded with an intensity that transcended time. On opening night, as the actors poured their hearts into their roles and the children's laughter filled the air, Celia led the ritual. In a moment of raw vulnerability, she wept openly, her tears mingling with the emotions of every performer on stage. As the final line was delivered, a cry of longing and liberation, the theater trembled. The mirrors that had once remained void flickered with ghostly images, and the stage lights flared, illuminating every corner of the grand auditorium. For a fleeting, miraculous moment, the actors appeared fully human, a testament to the release of their tortured spirits. Then, one by one, they stepped off the stage and vanished into the ether, leaving behind a silence filled with hope. The following morning, when the first rays of sunlight filtered through the dusty windows of eternity, the theater was transformed. Gone were the spectral figures and the heavy aura of eternal performance. In their place lay only the echo of a long-forgotten applause, a soft murmur of gratitude from the very walls of the house. Celia stood alone on the now quiet stage, feeling both a profound sorrow for the lives that had been trapped and an overwhelming relief that they had finally found peace. The curse, it seemed, was not fully broken. It lingered like a bittersweet memory, but the actors were no longer confined to the endless cycle of performance. For the first time in decades, the theater was silent, its stage empty and its corridors echoing with the promise of new beginnings. In the weeks and months that followed, word of the miraculous event spread throughout the city. The once haunted theater became a beacon for those who believed in the transformative power of art and compassion. Celia dedicated herself to preserving the legacy of the lost actors, organizing memorial performances and establishing a small museum within the theater to honor their contributions. The museum's centerpiece was an ornate mirror, a relic from the old days that now, strangely enough, reflected the faces of those who came to pay their respects, as if the past and present had finally reconciled. Visitors marveled at the transformation. Actors and artists flocked to eternity, drawn by the promise that creativity could triumph over even the darkest curses. The theater began to host plays that explored themes of loss, redemption, and the delicate interplay between life and art. Each performance was imbued with a sense of catharsis, a tribute to the souls who had once been trapped within its walls, and a celebration of the human spirit's capacity to overcome even the most tragic of fates. Years later, as time continued its relentless march, and the legend of the theater evolved into a cherished local myth, Celia reflected on the journey that had begun with an unassuming inheritance. The House of Eternal Performance, as it came to be known, stood as a testament to both the beauty and the fragility of life. The actors, freed from their spectral prison, had become part of the theater's storied past, their memories etched into every stone, every velvet curtain, every note of laughter that once echoed through the halls. Celia, now older and wiser, continued to write about her experiences, her journals becoming treasured manuscripts for future generations of dreamers and seekers. She would often return to the empty stage late at night, sitting in the silence that had once been filled with ghostly performances, and listen to the soft echoes of applause that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the theater. In those moments, she was reminded that art, like life, is an ever-evolving performance, a delicate dance between joy and sorrow, between the ephemeral and the eternal. The theater where actors were once never seen leaving had at last found a way to let them go. Its legacy was not one of perpetual haunting, but of redemption, a story of how the power of creativity and the strength of the human heart can free even the most tormented souls. And so, in the quiet annals of the city's history, the tale of eternity was passed down as a reminder that while art may bind us in its beauty, it is the courage to let go that ultimately sets us free. In every whispered word, Every well-worn script, every flickering stage light, there lives the memory of those lost actors, a legacy of passion, sorrow, and transcendence that continues to inspire all who believe in the magic of the theater. Thus ends the chronicle of the theater, where actors are never seen leaving, a tale woven with the threads of sorrow, hope, and the enduring power of art. For in that ancient hallowed hall, the final curtain never truly falls. It merely awaits the next soul brave enough to listen to its eternal applause. Deep in the heart of an ancient forest, where centuries-old oaks and silver birches stand as silent sentinels and the mists weave through gnarled roots, a legend endures. Local lore speaks of a bell, hidden in a secluded clearing, whose toll echoes with the power of forgotten times. They say that when the bell tolls, it is not merely sound that fills the air, but a mysterious vibration that touches every living thing, stirring memories of joy and sorrow, hope and despair. Its chime is said to herald transformations, foretell fateful events, and remind all who hear it of the delicate balance between nature and the human spirit. No one truly knows when the bell will ring or why, but its presence has been woven into the very fabric of the forest for as long as any soul can remember. In the small village of Briar's Edge, nestled at the forest boundary, tales of the bell were as common as the morning mist. From the old storytellers who sat by crackling fires to the children chasing dreams along dirt roads, the legend was passed down with a mixture of reverence and trepidation. One such child was Rowan Carter, a quiet, introspective boy with eyes that gleamed with curiosity. His grandmother would often recount the tale in hushed tones of a bell whose tone could freeze time, mend broken hearts, or forewarn of impending calamity. As Rowan grew into a young man, the story became an obsession. Every twilight, he would wander to the forest's edge, straining his ears for that distinctive sound, a deep, sonorous toll that might echo from the heart of the woods. The villagers warned him that the forest was no place for idle dreams, yet the call of the unknown was irresistible. With each whispered rumor and half-forgotten verse, his desire to uncover the mystery of the tolling bell only deepened. One cool autumn morning, with the sky streaked in brilliant shades of amber and crimson, Rowan resolved to venture beyond the familiar. Packing a worn leather journal, a small compass, and provisions for a journey into the unknown, he set off into the forest. The path to the hidden heart of the wood was overgrown and uncertain, a narrow track that wound between mossy boulders and beneath arching branches heavy with dew. The deeper Rowan walked, the more the forest revealed its secret language. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in delicate beams, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced upon the forest floor. Every rustle of leaves, every distant call of a bird seemed imbued with meaning, as if the forest itself were speaking a language older than words. And amid these natural harmonies, Rowan could almost hear a distant chime, a subtle, rhythmic pulse that spurred him ever onward. Days melted into one another as Rowan journeyed deeper into the forest. The path became a labyrinth of winding trails, secret clearings, and unexpected glens where wildflowers bloomed in defiant bursts of color. In these quiet moments, the forest appeared timeless, each step taking him further from the world of men and closer to a realm where nature reigned supreme. One afternoon, as he paused by a crystal-clear stream that mirrored the sky, Rowan noticed a peculiar hush descend. The usual chorus of bird song had faded into silence, and the light took on an ethereal glow. In that suspended moment, he sensed that he was nearing his destination. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for the sound of a long-forgotten bell to break the stillness. After days of patient wandering, Rowan finally emerged into a vast clearing. At its center stood an ancient stone pedestal, weathered by time and draped in ivy. Suspended from a sturdy iron arm affixed to the pedestal was a massive bell, its surface adorned with intricate carvings depicting swirling motifs, celestial patterns, and enigmatic figures whose faces were lost to the ages. The clearing was bathed in the soft light of late afternoon, and the air held an otherworldly stillness. Rowan approached with reverence, his heart pounding in his chest as he beheld the mysterious relic. In that silent moment, the forest seemed to pulse around him, every leaf, every breeze, every ray of light converging upon this single point of mystery. Then, as if on cue, the bell began to toll. Its sound was deep and resonant, a mournful yet majestic chime that vibrated through the earth and the very air. The toll was slow and measured, echoing off the distant trees and stirring the ancient memories of the forest. In that moment, time itself seemed to pause as the sound enveloped Rowan, drawing him into a realm of visions and hidden truths. As the bell's chime faded into a lingering echo, Rowan felt a transformation deep within him. The sound unlocked a torrent of memories, not his own alone, but fragments of countless souls that had once roamed these lands. In the silence that followed, the clearing shimmered with images, fleeting visions of past lives, ancient celebrations, heart-wrenching farewells and triumphs of love that defied the passage of time. He saw a young maiden dancing beneath a full moon, a brave warrior mourning a fallen comrade, and a wise elder whispering secrets to the winds. The visions were both beautiful and painful, a mosaic of life's myriad emotions, captured in the toll of a single bell. Rowan realized that the bell was more than a mere instrument. It was a conduit, a bridge connecting the present to the vast, uncharted history of the forest. Each toll was a call to remember, a summons for those who had been forgotten to return, if only in the quiet resonance of time. In the wake of the vision, as the clearing's light deepened into twilight, a figure emerged from the shadows. Draped in flowing robes that shifted like the colors of dusk, the guardian of the bell appeared. His eyes, a luminous silver, carried the weight of countless ages, and his presence exuded both authority and gentle melancholy. "Welcome, traveler," the guardian intoned, his voice merging with the rustling of the leaves. "I am Aaron, keeper of the toll and guardian of this sacred clearing. You have heard the call of the bell, and with it, the memories of our world stir anew. The toll you witnessed is the song of the forest, a melody that binds the past to the present, that carries the hopes and sorrows of those long gone." Aaron explained that the bell had been crafted by ancient druids, imbued with the magic of the natural world and the spirit of a lost civilization. Its toll was meant to preserve the collective memory of the land, ensuring that every life, every dream, every heartbreak was remembered. But he also warned that the bell's power was double-edged. Its toll could awaken dormant joys and sorrows alike, and those who heard it must be prepared to face the truths it revealed. Over the following days, with Aaron as his enigmatic guide, Rowan delved deeper into the forest's secrets. They visited hidden groves where the air shimmered with the laughter of unseen children, and ancient ruins where the echoes of long-forgotten ceremonies still lingered. In each sacred space, the bell's toll resonated in subtle ways, sometimes as a gentle reminder, sometimes as a deafening clarion call. Rowan struggled to come to terms with the weight of the visions he had witnessed. The bell had shown him the vast tapestry of human emotion, but it had also unburdened him of his own carefully guarded memories. With every toll, he was forced to confront his inner self, the dreams he had forsaken, the fears he had hidden, and the joys that had slipped through his fingers like sand. In the quiet solitude of the forest, he spent long hours writing in his journal, capturing every fleeting vision and pondering the nature of memory and time. During one such reflective evening, as the forest was bathed in the violet glow of dusk, Rowan confided in Aaron. "I see beauty and sorrow intertwined," he said softly, "and I fear that if I cling too tightly to these memories, I will be lost in the past. Yet I also feel that without them, who am I?" Aaron's eyes glistened with ancient understanding. The bell tolls to remind us that our lives are a continuum, a delicate dance between what has been and what is yet to come. Embrace your memories, both bitter and sweet, for they are the threads that weave your soul. But do not let them chain you to a time long gone. Instead, let them guide you toward a future that honors the past while embracing the promise of the new day. As the days passed, Rowan's journey became as much an inward quest as an exploration of the forest. The visions from the bell had awakened within him a deep yearning, a desire not only to remember but to change, to heal old wounds and create new paths. Yet the path forward was fraught with peril. The forest, with all its ancient magic, demanded a sacrifice. To gain insight, one must be willing to let go of what was once cherished. One crisp morning, beneath a sky brushed with the soft hues of early dawn, Rowan faced a choice. He could remain in the forest, forever a wanderer in a realm of endless memory, or he could return to the world of men, carrying with him the bittersweet legacy of the bell's toll. The decision weighed upon him like the very gravity of time itself. In the silence of the clearing, with the bell's faint echo still ringing in his heart, Rowan made his choice. He would leave the forest not to forget its lessons, but to share them with the world. The memories and visions would remain with him, a part of his essence, guiding him in every step of his life. With a final, lingering glance at the ancient bell and the spectral guardian who had become both mentor and friend, Rowan set forth on the path back to his village. Emerging from the forest was like waking from a profound dream, a dream in which the boundaries between past and present, hope and despair, had dissolved into a tapestry of luminous memory. The village of Briar's Edge welcomed Rowan with a mixture of curiosity and quiet reverence, for his eyes now held the depth of someone who had seen both the majesty and the melancholy of a world beyond ordinary sight. Rowan began to recount his experiences in detailed letters and heartfelt lectures. He described the clearing where the bell tolled, the visions that danced in the air, and the wisdom imparted by Aaron. His words, infused with the poetry of the forest and the raw truth of human emotion, touched the hearts of all who listened. Slowly, the legend of the tolling bell transcended the boundaries of myth and became a cherished part of local lore. A reminder that the past, with all its beauty and sorrow, was always present, waiting to guide those with the courage to listen. Years passed, and Rowan's journey became a beacon for future generations. His journals, filled with intricate descriptions of the forest's secret life in the eternal chime of the bell, were compiled into a collection of stories that inspired poets, artists, and seekers of truth. The bell itself remained in the heart of the forest, its toll a constant, mysterious hymn that echoed through the ages. Many returned to the clearing, drawn by the promise of the unknown. Some sought to relive the visions of lost time, while others came to find solace in the idea that every moment, every memory, was connected in an endless chain of existence. And though the forest remained impenetrable to those who did not listen with their hearts, it slowly became a sanctuary, a place where the beauty of life's impermanence was celebrated and the delicate interplay of joy and sorrow was embraced. In the twilight of his life, Rowan often returned to the forest alone. There, beneath a sky alive with the glow of a million stars, he would sit in quiet reflection as the bell tolled in the distance. Its sound was not merely a reminder of the past, but a promise of the future. A call to remember that even as time marches on, the echoes of our souls remain forever entwined with the rhythm of nature. The legend of the bell that tolls in the heart of the forest lives on, a timeless testament to the fragile beauty of existence. It whispers to every wanderer that dares to seek its secrets. Embrace your memories, honor your dreams, and know that every toll is a celebration of life. A reminder that the past and future dance together in an eternal waltz. Thus, the mysterious chime continues to ring in the depths of the forest, a sound that binds the hearts of all who have listened, carrying with it the hope, the sorrow, and the infinite wonder of a world where time, like a gentle river, flows ever onward. In every echo of that bell, there lies a fragment of truth, a memory of what has been, and a promise of what is yet to come. For as long as the forest stands and its ancient trees whisper in the wind, the bell will toll, inviting each new soul to listen to the eternal song of life. In an old town steeped in mystery and lost histories, there was a legend that echoed through narrow cobblestone streets and whispered in the flickering lamplight of forgotten alleys. It was said that hidden away in a neglected clock shop, or perhaps tucked in the attic of a crumbling manor, there existed a clock with a power so strange and profound that it defied the natural order. When it stopped, time itself would freeze. For generations, villagers exchanged furtive glances and hushed warnings about that enchanted timepiece. A clock that, when its ticking ceased, brought the world to an eerie, motionless halt. Some believed it was a blessing that allowed one to savor a perfect moment. Others claimed it was a curse that trapped souls in endless stasis. And as the years wore on, the legend grew. A whispered myth of a clock that could control time, if only for a fleeting moment. Elias Marlowe was an unassuming young watchmaker with a passion for antique timepieces. He had inherited a modest workshop from his late father, nestled on a quiet side street in the town of Briarwick. Among the routine repairs and delicate adjustments he made to the clocks of others, Elias longed for something extraordinary, a chance to discover a secret that would set his heart racing. One rainy afternoon, while rummaging through a dusty trunk left behind by his father, Elias unearthed a peculiar object, an ornate brass-bound clock with intricate filigree and faded inscriptions in a language long forgotten. Its face was marked with delicate hands that had ceased their eternal dance. The once precise tick-tock replaced by a silent, frozen moment. Something about the clock stirred an inexplicable feeling within him, a mixture of awe, nostalgia, and a deep, persistent curiosity. Unable to resist its allure, Elias carried the clock back to his workshop, unaware that its discovery would soon shatter the boundaries of his reality. That very night, as thunder rumbled in the distance and rain pattered against the workshop windows, Elias set to work on the mysterious clock. With gentle precision, he polished its surface and studied the faded inscriptions, attempting to decipher their hidden meaning. At midnight, as the world outside slumbered, he wound the clock and observed its inner workings with the keen eye of a master craftsman. Suddenly, as if imbued with its own strange life, the clock's hands stuttered and halted. The silence that followed was profound, unnerving in its completeness. Elias reached for his pocket watch to check the time, but as he did, he noticed something inexplicable. The steady hum of the rain outside, the subtle creaks of the old building, and even the faint ticking of his own heartbeat, all had ceased. In that frozen instant, it was as if the world had been locked in a timeless, suspended moment. Panicked and exhilarated in equal measure, Elias stepped outside. He found that the rain hung motionless in the air, droplets suspended like crystals. A bird mid-flight hung frozen against the stormy sky. It was undeniable. The clock had stopped, and with it, time itself had frozen. The next hours, or what felt like hours in that timeless state, were a surreal exploration for Elias. Wandering the silent streets of Briarwick, he encountered a world caught in a perpetual pause. Shopkeepers stood mid-sentence on deserted sidewalks, their faces locked in expressions of wonder and confusion. The town's river, normally chattering and rippling with life, flowed as still as glass. In that eerie moment, every living thing was trapped in a tableau, suspended in perfect detail. Elias marveled at the uncanny beauty of it all, but also felt an undercurrent of dread. This was no mere pause in time, it was a force beyond comprehension. As he observed the frozen world, he began to suspect that the clock was not simply a relic, but a key to a power that could bend time to one's will. And yet, with that realization came the terrifying possibility of control lost and consequences unforeseen. Over the following days, Elias experimented cautiously with the clock. In his workshop, he discovered that if he rewound and restarted the clock's mechanism, time would resume as if nothing had happened. But whenever the clock stopped, whether by his will or by a mysterious malfunction, everything around him froze in time. With each experiment, Elias became increasingly obsessed. He would set the clock to stop at precise moments, marveling at the eerie perfection of a world paused in its prime. At one point, he even attempted to manipulate the frozen world, moving objects, repositioning items, only to be overcome by a profound sorrow. In those moments of frozen stillness, he felt as though he was intruding on the natural order, as if every moment captured by the clock was the sum of a lifetime of hidden stories. Rumors began to stir in Briarwick. Neighbors reported that Elias's workshop glowed at night with an otherworldly light, and whispers spread of a man who could command time itself. Some feared that such power was dangerous, while others were entranced by the idea of a clock that could capture time. Elias himself grew conflicted. The clock was a gift, a wonder of unparalleled magic, but it also carried a heavy burden. With every pause in time, he felt a part of him was being left behind, trapped in that silent moment, like a memory fading away. As the experiments continued, Elias began to entertain a dangerous thought. What if he could use the clock to escape the inevitable decay of time? In the frozen moments, he could preserve moments of beauty, eternalize love, and perhaps even cheat death. Late at night, in the solitude of his workshop, he imagined a life where he could pause the world during moments of joy and sorrow alike, reliving them endlessly without change. The idea was intoxicating, a promise of immortality, if only for a few precious seconds at a time. Yet as Elias toyed with the notion, he began to notice subtle changes within himself. His reflection in the workshop's mirror grew fainter, as if parts of his very essence were being drawn into the clock's silent void. Friends began to whisper that Elias's eyes held a distant, haunted look. He became reclusive, shunning social gatherings in favor of solitary nights spent with the clock. In his heart, he wrestled with a terrible question. Was he losing himself in his quest to master time? Or was he simply catching a glimpse of a greater truth? A truth that required him to surrender parts of his soul to the relentless march of eternity. One fateful evening, while experimenting with the clock's power at its peak, Elias encountered something extraordinary. He set the clock to stop at precisely 12 noon, the moment when the sun was highest in the sky. As expected, the entire world outside his workshop came to a standstill. But this time, something unusual occurred. In the silence of that frozen moment, Elias began to see visions swirling around him. Images from his own past, childhood laughter, long-forgotten embraces, moments of triumph and tragedy, floated before his eyes as if the clock had unlocked a hidden gallery of memories. The visions were vivid and overwhelming. He saw the face of his mother, warm and loving, then the laughter of his friends, the bittersweet echoes of a lost love, and even the shadow of his own mortality. Each frozen moment was a testament to a life lived fully, yet now imprisoned in that silent frame. For a long while, Elias watched, tears streaming down his face, as the clock revealed the beauty and sorrow of his existence in one endless, poignant moment. But as the visions faded and time began to flow once more, Elias was left with a deep, aching realization. The clock did not merely pause time, it captured the essence of life in its purest form, both joyful and painful. And in that revelation lay the danger of the clock. To stop time was to risk losing the very vibrancy of living. The more Elias used the clock, the more the line between reality and frozen time blurred. He found himself caught in a cycle of desire and despair. Every time he stopped the clock, he could relive moments of beauty, but each pause also extracted a heavy toll on his spirit. He began to notice that with every freeze, his connection to the present weakened, as if the constant interruptions were eroding the continuity of his life. Late one night, as the rain hammered against his workshop's windows and the gears of the clock ticked in relentless rhythm, Ellis faced a decision that would define his future. In the dim light, he laid out a plan, a daring experiment that would allow him to use the clock to revisit one single, perfect moment from his past. The day he first met the woman he had loved and lost. The moment of pure, unbridled happiness that had once defined him. Torn between the intoxicating allure of eternal recollection and the fear of losing himself in a frozen dream, Elias hesitated. His heart ached with the memory of love and loss, and the prospect of reclaiming that perfect moment was almost too seductive to resist. But deep down, a voice of caution whispered, "True life was lived in motion, in the fleeting dance of seconds that built into minutes and years. To stop time was to stop growing, to halt the inevitable progression of life and the bittersweet beauty of change." As days turned into restless nights, Elias's internal struggle grew. His obsession with the clock reached a fever pitch. In a moment of both triumph and despair, he decided to test the limits of the clock's power. With trembling hands, he set the clock for the exact moment of that cherished memory and pressed the button to freeze time. The world around him slowed to a crawl. The rain outside halted mid-drop. The creaks and whispers of the old building were suspended in the air. And in that frozen instant, Elias found himself face to face with the perfect, still image of his past. His lost love, radiant and serene, as if captured in a photograph of his most cherished memory. For a moment, time stood utterly still, and Elias felt as if he could reach out and reclaim that piece of his soul. But as the seconds stretched into what felt like eternity, a cold dread seeped into him. The beauty of the moment was undeniable, yet it was also a trap, a lure that promised to keep him trapped in the past, denying him the chance to experience new joys, new sorrows, and the full, messy tapestry of life. In that haunting silence, the memory spoke to him, not in words, but in the profound language of longing and regret. Elias realized that to dwell in a moment so perfect was to forsake the vibrant, unpredictable reality of existence. With a deep, shuddering breath, he made the agonizing choice to release the clock's hold, to allow time to flow once more, even if it meant letting go of the past he so desperately wished to reclaim. As the clock's mechanisms began to turn again, and the frozen world around him burst into motion, Elias felt a bittersweet relief wash over him. The rain resumed its steady rhythm. Birds once again filled the air with their calls. The world reclaimed its ever-changing pulse. Yet even as life resumed its flow, the memory of that frozen moment lingered, a reminder of both what he had lost and what he had nearly sacrificed. In the weeks that followed, Elias became more reflective and in many ways wiser. The clock remained in his workshop, a magnificent, enigmatic relic of extraordinary power, but he no longer used it to freeze time at will. Instead, he treated it as a solemn reminder that life's beauty lay in its impermanence, that the fleeting nature of moments was what gave them meaning. He began to record his experiences in detailed journals, not just as technical observations, but as personal reflections on the nature of time, memory, and love. His writings grew into a rich tapestry of thought and emotion, capturing the paradox of a clock that could halt time, yet teach him that true living was found in its relentless flow. In time, Elias's reputation grew beyond Briarwick. His philosophical treatises on the nature of time and memory, interwoven with the haunting mystery of the magical clock, garnered the attention of scholars, poets, and dreamers alike. People from far and wide traveled to his modest workshop to see the clock that could freeze time when it stopped, and to hear Elias speak of its profound lessons. Yet the clock itself, despite its extraordinary power, became a quiet symbol of the impermanence of life, a reminder that while moments may be paused, the relentless march of time would always continue. Elias never forgot the day he nearly lost himself in a frozen memory. It became the pivot upon which he balanced his understanding of joy and sorrow, of holding on and letting go. In his later years, as the gentle weight of age softened the edges of his memories, Elias found solace in the simple act of living. He continued his work with renewed passion, mentoring young apprentices in the art of watchmaking and the delicate dance between time and life. And though he never again used the clock to imprison time, its presence in his workshop served as a perpetual testament to the lessons he had learned, that the beauty of existence lay not in the perfection of a single moment, but in the ever-changing tapestry of countless imperfect ones. Long after Elias had passed from this world, his workshop became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to understand the elusive nature of time. The clock that froze time when it stopped remained on display, a silent, enigmatic guardian of the secrets it had once revealed. In the soft light of dawn and dusk, visitors would stand before it in quiet contemplation, pondering the paradox of a device that could suspend time and yet remind them that life was a series of moving moments. In libraries and lecture halls, Elias's writings continued to inspire, a legacy of wisdom that urged people to cherish every fleeting second, to embrace both the beauty and the sorrow of impermanence. And so the legend of the magical clock endured, woven into the fabric of human understanding like a timeless refrain. For in every tick of a clock, in every heartbeat, there lies the promise that though moments may be halted for a breath, time will always move forward, carrying with it the hope, the love, and the infinite possibilities of a life lived fully in the dance between past and future. Thus ends the chronicle of the clock that freezes time when it stops, a story of magic, longing, and the eternal truth that while we may seek to hold on to our most cherished memories, it is the continual flow of time that gives them meaning and allows our souls to grow.